Hi guys, in this video I want to talk about the do until and do while loop and basically just cover the structure of them and show you that you can put the criteria at the beginning of the structure or at the bottom. So let's consider a case where I have a loop and I want the criteria for looping is that I want to loop until I reach a blank cell. Okay, so I want to loop down. I'm going to start in cell A2 right here, and I'm going to loop down here until I find a blank cell. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to start in cell B2 and loop down until I find a blank cell. And notice that the first cell is blank, so this presents sort of a question. Well, if it's blank, is it even going to enter the loop? You know, I want to loop until the cell is blank, but the first cell is blank. Well, when you set up your do until loop, if you put your expression, and by expression I mean the cell being blank, if you put that up here at the top, do until cell R1 is blank, and R here I just declared it long and I set it to 2. So do until this cell is blank. If you put your expression up here like this, then it's going to evaluate that expression, and if that expression comes back as being satisfied, then satisfied meaning true, meaning it's been met, the expression has been met, meaning the value is blank, then it won't go into here. It won't go into the code here. And you'll see that because if I step through, right now the structure of a do until loop is just the do until and then your expression and then a loop down here. You have to set up any variables, you know, that like counter variables or looping variables, so you have to do that yourself. And I did that here with declaring dim r is long, and I'm incrementing r here to loop down this column. So what I want to show you is that if you put your expression up here that I want to loop until the cell is blank, well, if the first cell is blank, then it's not going to execute the code like this because you put your expression up top. However, you can execute the code the first time if you put your expression down below like this. And this is the same expression. It says loop until the cell is blank, but notice that because you moved it down below, there's no criteria to be evaluated up top, so that this code here will be evaluated now. So this is the question we're determining here is what happens when the first loop, the criteria has been met. And I want to show you that when the criteria is met the first time, the very first time of the loop, the first loop, when it's met, if you put your expression up top, you won't fall into your code. But if you put it at the bottom, if I step through, you'll see that I do step through into the code. Okay? So the same criteria just moved from the top to the bottom. When I move it to the bottom, now I'm in the code, and you could see that because I'm stepping through, and here's what's happening. I selected the cell and I changed the color, and now I put some text in it that this cell was selected, because I want to show you that up here you don't get to this point. You don't get to the coloring. You know, there is no coloring here, there is no text. If I step through, there is no text in here because I moved it. The only difference here is what you see in yellow. The structure of this loop is do until criteria and then a bunch of code and then the word loop. That's the structure of a do until loop. But you can also do a do until loop like this. Do, and then you do some code like this, and then you put loop and your until criteria like this. So the only difference is when you move the expression to the bottom like this, then the very first time, if the criteria has been met, you still will evaluate the code like that. So that's all I wanted to show you. Now let's look at do whiles, the do while loop. So in this case, I want to do the same thing. I want to loop while this cell, these cells are not blank. So that means I would stop on a blank cell, right? So if I had text in here, it would keep looping until it's not blank. Okay? And let's look at what happens the first time we do a do while. And it's the same situation where Excel VBA it gives you the option of putting your expression at the top or at the bottom. And we see that when I do it the same way, it's the same thing is going to happen as a do until. Is that if I step into this, the do while cells R3, which is this cell here, is not blank. Well, this cell is blank, so that means it's not going to step into this code. So if I step into this, it jumps right over it, right? But if I move this expression down below here, all I did was take this and move it down below, you're going to see that let me just move this. As I step into this, you know, here I'm stepping into it, and let me just scroll this down. Here I'm stepping into it, and because I move my expression to the bottom of the while loop, I am able to get into the code. And there you go. So that's all this sub does. I just wanted to put all the combinations for the structures of a do until and a do while loop. And they're very simple. It's only 4 combinations. And the first combination is for the do until is do until and then your criteria at the top, and then you write some code and then you put loop. And then the second combination for the do until is do, you put some code and then loop until. And what that does is on the first time, if your criteria has been met, do you want it to execute? If you do, you want to use this. You want to use this structure. If you don't, use this structure. And these are not big decisions. I mean, you could pick either one and you'll find out which one you need if what you are working on, you know, it'll show up somehow that, oh, the first time I need it to work. I need it to hit the code. So you want to do it like that. Same thing with do while loop. If you wanted to execute the code the first time when the criteria is satisfied, then don't do this because it didn't execute any code. Do this. Do the structure like do, then your code, and then loop while, and then the criteria, and it'll execute the first time if it's been satisfied. So if the criteria has been satisfied. So that's what I wanted to show you in this video. It's not too deep. It's nothing to think about. It's just that, you know, you might be writing some do while loop or some do until loop, and the first time the criteria is satisfied, and you might notice something strange happens. And this is why. It's because if the criteria is satisfied the first time, you don't execute the code here, but if you do here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I wanted to show you that. And let's see. So in the next video, I know this video might be kind of boring. It's not the most exciting one. In the next video, though, I'll show you an actual loop, an actual use for these loops, the do until and the do while. What we're going to do is, you know, this is a real-world example where you have a bunch of data on this worksheet, and this could be many columns, but all you want to do is we're going to loop down this column and find the expired products, and we're going to move them to this sheet. And that's what we're going to do in the next video. It's a real-world example, something you could use. And one more thing is that, you know, go to excelvbasequel.com and watch the free videos. Thanks.